Hello people, welcome to Choco Millionaire. In this video, I'm going to give my personal opinion as to why you need to get certain visas, especially if you live in one of these countries that I will be talking about. For those of us who are not from countries that have visa-free entry to most countries in the world, unfortunately, we have to go through visa applications and visa applications and visa applications. And to be honest with you, it is not an easy thing trying to get a visa to other countries, especially in the global north, when you are from a developing country. But it could be extremely easy if you are coming from certain countries. So in this video, I'm going to focus on some countries and tell you why. And then I'll give you reasons why I personally think that you should be a bit proactive in probably considering getting visas to this country. So I live in Canada, and I came here as an international student myself, but I was very, very fortunate when I came here. The Ghanaians who were in the community that I live were, they advised and they said, hey, apply for a US visa. I didn't have any reason to apply for a visa, to be honest. They said I should apply for a US visa. And I'm like, why? And then they said, well, it is what everybody does. Everybody applies for a US visa. I'm like, okay. So I asked more and more questions, and I got to know that I could apply for a B1, B2 visa as somebody who is a Canadian international student to go to the US for a conference, to attend a conference, or to go for vacation, or to just go and even shop in the US or something like that. By the way, Canada and US are neighbors. We share the same border. We have one of the longest, borders in the world, like protected borders or unprotected borders, I should say, in the world. So it is much easier. Now, the reason why you find a lot of international students in Canada apply for US visa is that it is pretty easy getting a US visa if you are an international student here in Canada. In fact, at the time I came, it was so easy getting an appointment for a visa, your visa appointment as well. I did mine in Toronto. You could do yours in any part of Canada by just booking an appointment with the US embassy. And then it's so easy. There are times you show up and then just one or two questions, boom, and they approve it for you. Not so hectic. Not so hectic getting this visa, this same visa, B1, B2 from Canada, if you're an international student, or if you're a permanent resident, or if you are on a work visa, or if you have a very good temporary resident status in Canada. It's one of the easiest visas you can get. Compared to getting the same visa back home, in my country, Ghana, where I'm originally from, it's hectic. Right? To get a B1, B2, sometimes you need to go and pray a little bit, go to the mountains and pray, let some pastors lay hands on you, you know what I mean? Do some seed sowing to churches and stuff like that, you know, do all kinds of combinations just to get it. It's hectic. But just by living in certain countries, it becomes more easier to acquire the same visas. The same thing applies to those who are also in the US. International students, work visa holders, permanent residents. It is also so easy to get a Canadian visa. In fact, I have shared videos in the past where some students share the experience that, hey, they apply for their Canada visitors visa as international students or people living in the US, and they were surprised at the ease at which it was. Some of them didn't even have to upload bank statements. Visa was approved. Some of them said within 2, 3, 4, 5 days or 1 week, they got the visas approved. No stress. And you wonder, why is it always difficult to get this same visa from an African country? Well, your reason or your guess is as good as mine. Sometimes your location determines how easy things become for you. That is a fact. Don't let no mumu deceive you. It's a fact. Sometimes your location and your immigration status determines what you can get. You see, if you are an American citizen in Ghana right now, it can be easy for you to get anywhere in the world. But if you're a Ghanaian citizen in Ghana, applying for a visa, you know what it is. It's another drama on its own. It is what it is. One particular development actually made me want to do this video, which I'm doing right now. So there is a family in the US that got stranded recently. They actually had some immigration challenges there. And they had just a few days to exit the US. In other words, they were actually told to leave the US because of XYZ. And by the way, before anybody started reading meaning into it, it wasn't anything criminal. So it's not a criminal offense that you can say, oh my God, it was a big offense. It was just something I had to do with, not getting certain things done on time or, something. I'm not going to go into the details. Now, their option, by the time you are told to actually leave the country, it means you are going back home. But do you know what saved them? What saved them is the fact that this couple or this family have applied for visas to other countries, especially at the time they were in the United States. So when this stuff happened, instead of picking bags and packing up and saying, I'm going to Uganda or Tanzania or South Africa, where I'm from, well, they just pick up and say, well, we got another country to go to. We got a visa to another country. Let's just go there. Simple as that. Now, the question is, what if they never applied for this visa when they were actually in the US? What would have happened? You got what I mean? In short, I'm asking you this question right now. You who is in the US right now, as an international student or on a work visa or as a green card holder, you are not yet an American citizen, right? Or you are on an exchange program and you are living in one of the best countries in the world in terms of immigration. If I should put it that way, that's controversial. Some people would disagree. But you've not taken advantage of your fact that you have a legal status in the US right now to apply for a Schengen visa, a UK visa, to apply for a Canadian visitor's visa, which is one of the easiest to get just because of your status in the US. I'm hoping that everything goes as planned for you. In other words, I'm hoping your transition goes as you planned and blah, 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 and you get your papers. But what if things don't go as planned, my brother? Especially with the drama going on in different parts of the world, are you going back? What if things don't click for you? In other words, what if the hopes you had in getting XYZ don't go? What if you are told that, hey, you've violated some of the conditions of your visa, and because of that, you have to leave the United States? Where will you go next? You're going back home. You know, be so? Because you never thought it was necessary to do that. Now, this same thing applies to international students or work visa holders or permanent residents who are living in Canada right now. I don't think the situation here is as dire as the situation in the US. In all sincerity, my personal opinion, I'm not trying to say Canada is like no issues, it's easier to get documents all the time. No. But it is way better here in Canada than the United States. In the US, there are many people there who are actually stranded in the US. They don't know where to go next. Hundreds and thousands of people. Recently, Canada opened what they call the nomad, digital nomads visa, specifically targeting H-1B1 visa holders from the US. Now, H-1B1 visa holders are highly skilled worker visa holders who are in different professions in the US, and most of them have been there for several years. They have not gotten their papers. Canada introduced this policy under the former immigration minister's regime, Sean Fraser. Within 24 hours, actually within 48 hours, 10,000 spots that were reserved for people in the US was filled up within 48 hours. Do you know what it means? It simply means many folks in the US who were stranded were just hoping for an opportunity like this to come from Canada. So when it was open, boom, people applied. Within 48 hours, 10,000 spots gone. This is not me saying it. You can Google it. The H-1B1 visa, the program that Canada introduced called the digital nomad visa. What happened to it? Within 48 hours, it was filled up. By who? People in the US. You know what I mean? So if you're in the US, you have to be tactical. Don't tell me you were a student, things are going to go well. There is always a what if. So now that you are there, with Visitors Visa Day Canada, I know we'll take them. Especially when earlier today, I did a video and I said, or I suggested, or I shared my personal opinion by reading the immigration, telling you guys how you can navigate your visitor's visa to a student or a study permit, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? In fact, just before I also came on this video, an hour or so ago, I was just chatting with a friend in the US who is doing his PhD and just recently got married. He said he came across my video today on YouTube, and so he thought it wise to reach out to me, and then we're vibing. Now we're exploring some ways that he's a student, right? And I said, look, bro, like, this visitor's visa is there. Canada is easy to get. Find a conference, find an event. Watch some of the videos I've done on how to find events and stuff like that. Apply, put it in. Within 2, 3, 4 days, you could get this thing approved. Let your wife get the same thing too. Maybe you are the one who is doing the schooling right now in the US, but your wife could come here and then maybe try and also, use the study route to maneuver. Whichever one works. If the US green card works for you faster, grab it. If the Canada PR works for you faster, grab it. Whichever one works faster. You know what I mean? But sometimes we just put all our eggs in one basket. And when things don't go right, we just You know what I'm trying to say? Just, it is my personal opinion. The same applies. Just, I never applied for a Schengen visa. I've never even been to Europe, like per se for visit, except for transiting ones. But you know, there are certain places that navigating through the system can be way, way easier. At least if Canada and US have no work for you, except for a day. And those of you, by the way, who are in Europe too, you know, by virtue of living in Europe, it also becomes a little bit easier accessing North America. You know this already. If you're in UK, for example, it's also much easier getting a US visa or getting it. And you have to know, by the way, we have certain types of visas that makes it easier for you to get. I personally think, my personal opinion, I personally think that if you are on a visitor's visa, it is more difficult getting visas to other countries, right? Like, let's say you are in Canada right now and you're on a visitor's visa, and then you try to apply for another visitor's visa for US. It is more likely you're not going to get it because your status in Canada is not even settled. Like, you are not even, you're holding a visitor's visa, which is very weak. But there are some people who could be getting it because they have prior visitor's visa. They have prior, visitor's visa to the US. Let's say you previously had a US B1, B2 visa, which was approved. You've been there, no issues. And now you are visiting Canada. Your US visa has expired. It is much easier to renew it. But for a first timer, if you are just visiting Canada, for example, and apply for a US visa, most likely they will refuse you. Why? Because your status in Canada is not even, and then you're trying to get another one. That situation there could be there. But if you just, you understand what I mean? The easiest ones are mostly work visa holders, student visa holders, skilled workers, permanent residents, or leave to remain if you're in the UK. These are the type of visas that makes it easy for you to actually get other countries' visas as well. You feel me? You understand what I mean? Yeah. But if you are saying the UK as a visitor and you've never applied for, say, a US visa, and then you just put an application in for a B1, B2 as you're in the UK visiting, there is a chance it may not be approved. Why? It's your first time applying and you are in a country where you are actually just visiting and stuff. It's also possible that based on the country you are originally coming from, the passport you're holding, it could play a role. There are some countries that enjoy a high approval rate. It is a fact. Whilst there are some countries that also have a very, 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 very low approval rate. So the country you're coming from also plays a role. You know what I mean? So just check. Maybe you're from Botswana, or you are from Mauritius. So when you apply, maybe it's much easier compared to maybe coming from Ghana or maybe coming from another country where it's maybe a little bit more difficult. You understand what I mean? From a tactical point, it could be very, very crucial if you have other countries' visas, just because of your location. Whenever things don't go well, you could always fall on that and then move around. Remember, visas facilitate movement of people around, and sometimes by your location you can. If there is any country outside of Europe and also North America, that probably, I would say, also has, like, you have a better shot. I would say in the Middle East, places, or Asia, places like maybe South Korea, Japan, South Korea. China is kind of like a 50-50. You could apply from China and you could get it, but the chance that you could also refuse is also pretty high. But people that I know from Japan who have good immigration status in Japan, they will easily apply for some of these visas, B1, B2 to come to the US, or visitor's visa to come to Canada, and they easily get them just because they have maybe good immigration standing in Japan. You understand what I mean? So sometimes it depends on the particular country you're living in. That could determine whether you get it or not. But from a tactical point, it could be useful. Remember, a visitor's visa itself, which is what I'm actually focusing this video on, it's not itself a visa that allows you to just stay and have status. You're just visiting and you have to leave. So sometimes your ability to understand the different pathways you can use to navigate, or the different pathways you can use to actually, change your status is very important. There are people who come here on a visitor's visa, or go to the US on a visitor's visa, and then they are able to transition from the visitor's visa in the US to a work visa. An example is Melania Trump, the ex-first lady of the United States, the wife of Donald Trump. In 1996, if I got my date right, she came into the United States on a B1, B2 visa, visiting the United States, right? At that time, she was just a model and blah, 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 right? She came, she visited, and then she went back. Later on, she came back again, this time on a work visa. right? She did some modeling in Europe, got visa, went to Europe and did some modeling. At the end of the day, she was able to apply for what in the US they call the Einstein visa. If I got it right, I think it's called EB1, right? EB1 visa, EB1 visa. Some people call it the Einstein visa. There is a reason why it's called the Einstein visa. That visa is reserved for people with extraordinary, qualities or abilities, or I think publications or something like that. But Melania Trump was able to actually transition from a B1, B2 visa to a work visa and eventually to that extraordinary visa. And somehow along the line, she got locked down there with Donald Trump and later became the first lady of the United States. You know what I mean? You feel me? You know what I'm talking about? So I'm just trying to tell you that having a B1, B2 or having a Canadian visitor visa could be a game changer for somebody if you know exactly what you're doing. The point is that a lot of people may have a visitor's visa, but they have no idea what you do with it. You understand? So you may have to probably consult an immigration consultant or maybe an immigration lawyer or people who know better to know. On my channel, I share personal opinion on how you can go about some of these things. And I always urge you guys to do your own research and stuff like that and figure it out. But I think if you, just to summarize everything again, if you're in the US right now as an international student and you have never thought about applying, I just had a conversation like this, maybe just to draw your attention to it. Maybe it's not something you really need. Maybe your situation is not as critical. But remember, it could always come in handy when you need it. Right now, most visitors visas are being issued to the validity of based on the validity of your passport. What does it mean? We are not seeing trends where people are just being given like 1 year, 2-year visas. They are issuing it to the expiry date of your passport. So if you have a 10-year passport, you are likely going to get a visitor visa for 10 years if it gets approved. If you have an 8-year passport remaining, you are likely going to get an 8-year. That is a long time there. So in the future, if you have the need to just come and visit this country, you just got a visa, you can. My US B1, B2 that I had, I used it to visit the US a couple of times, to shop in the US, to buy things across the border and stuff like that. It was useful. Do you also know that having a US B1, B2, especially as somebody who lives in Canada, if you live in Canada, listen to this part very well. Do you know that having a US B1, B2 visa could be a real cost-saving visa for you when it comes to traveling? The data actually shows that flights from different parts of the world coming to Canada that transit through the US are cheaper. That's a fact, at least for the data. Just check it out. In other words, if I am from Ghana and I'm coming to Canada, right, and I decide to buy an American airline ticket, there is a chance that I'll get that ticket for a really low price compared to buying other airlines tickets. It is a fact. In fact, if you go online and you're going through ticketing options, you'll notice that American Airlines top the list as cheap airlines among some of the other ones out there. But what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if you are not from a country which is visa-free to enter the US, or if you are not from a country where you have already secured a transit visa to transit through the United States, your B1, B2 visa could be a key game changer for you, which could allow you to transit through the US in order to come to Canada. If you don't have a visa to enter the US and you buy your ticket going to the US, most likely you'll be bounced. You have to return. Or you may have to go and apply for a transit visa at an additional price just to go there. So if I have the opportunity of getting my, my B1, B2, when I go visit any country out there and I'm coming, why don't I transit through the United States? I have friends who went to Ghana recently, and guess where they did their travel? Some of them drove across the border and went to Buffalo and flew from Buffalo to Africa. Why? They will tell you it was cheaper. It's just 20 minutes to actually cross the border and go to Buffalo. If you are living in Agra, it's just 20 minutes or 25 or 30 minutes to drive to the airport, isn't it? So why wouldn't I just drive down to Buffalo Airport, pick my flight from there, which is extremely cheaper compared to actually buying your ticket from Canada? You know what I mean? And then go. You save yourself money. But all of this is only possible because you have an immigration document that allows you to what? To enter the United States, or an agreement. Sometimes it's just extremely expensive. it's extremely expensive actually buying your ticket and flying from certain countries. The US could be a cheap place to fly through if you have the appropriate document. Remember, without a transit visa or without a B1, B2, or if you're not coming from a country where your passport is exempted from having to require an immigration document to go through the US, you will likely not be allowed to fly through the United States. That is why sometimes having visas like this could be a tactical thing for you, all right? If you're living in Europe as well, it could be a tactical. Just watch most of your friends in Europe. What do they do? Couple of years you see them there, boom, they move to the US. Couple of years you see them, boom, they move to Canada. Why? Because these guys have realized that if they're in the UK or if they're in different parts of Europe, they could make that transition. Now, this is not to say that you should always move, but I'm saying that it could always be something you could have on your, under your sleeve and use whenever you feel they need you. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching this video. Like it, subscribe, and share. Drop your comments as well if you like. This is just my personal opinion. Let me know what you think as well. And I hope this video is helpful to you. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.